Okay, let's invite our next guest on. It's Marc Fishman. He's the CEO of Oncology Analytics, oncologyanalytics.com. Welcome, Mr. Fishman.
Well, it's nice to be with you. I appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Oh, no problem. Now, are you a doctor?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so then let me rephrase that. Let's welcome Dr. Marc Fishman to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Doctor, what part of oncology, or do you practice? Did you practice in oncology?
Yes, I practiced hematology oncology for some decades in the South Florida area as a private practitioner.
Mm-hmm. So, tell me about, because I don't understand, what is Oncology Analytics?
So, the mission of Oncology Analytics is to improve the quality of cancer care while reducing cost. And during my career, I always looked at both quality and cost because cost impacts patients and patients' quality of life because of the potential high cost of cancer care. In 2008, a health plan asked me if I could help them address the rapidly escalating cost of cancer care, and I looked into it, and part of the review of pharmaceutical utilization data, I estimated that $1 billion a month is wasted on oncology pharmaceuticals. And the waste is more than just money, because when patients get pharmaceuticals that they don't need or won't benefit from, they'll still experience the potential adverse effects, and a lot of cancer drugs have serious side effects. So a lot of money is wasted, and it's potentially doing harm for the patients who receive these medications. So we created Oncology Analytics to address this issue. We grew rapidly in our early years. In 2012, Inc. magazine recognized Oncology Analytics as the 18th fastest growing private healthcare company in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And then since inception, we've reviewed hundreds of thousands of treatment requests for health plans, and I'm pleased to say that our recommendations have been followed greater than 99% of the time. So putting all of that together, what we're trying to accomplish with Oncology Analytics on the patient care level is to assure that patients receive the right treatments. Sometimes they're very costly, but that patients receive the right treatments and that the treatment isn't unnecessarily expensive.
It's all expensive. I mean,
some of them are still inexpensive. You'd be surprised. Some of the best drugs. One of the things I tell people is that if you're treating diseases like testicular cancer, which can be cured in the really advanced stage, if you spend more than $500 a month, the patient's outcome will be worse. Many of the generics are actually very, very good.
That's fascinating, and I want to drill down a little bit more into that. I want to talk about these type of cancers and the medicines and or drug prices. Why are they so high? And you just solved one for me. But we're going to talk about that on the other side of this commercial break. Thanks so much, Dr. Marc Fishman, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, welcome back to CEO Money. We're here with Dr. Marc Fishman, CEO at Oncology Analytics. He's been really talking to us about what's happening with drug pricing and really what's Oncology Analytics, and you brought us up to speed on that. So the drug pricing model, as you were talking about, if when with some cancers, it's not always the most expensive drugs that is the best for you.
That's correct. But there are drugs that are very expensive and absolutely essential for the management of various diseases. And when talking about prices, people will say they're too high, and the pharmaceutical industry will say they're not too high because you must amortize the very high cost of research over the expected sale of the drug. And that's given us an opportunity at Oncology Analytics to determine if that's true. And unfortunately, it's not always true. And I have an example which I think is pretty dramatic. A lot of times when I hear discussions of prices, people will say they're too high or they're too low, but not why. So I'd like to speak a moment about a drug called Rituxan, which was approved by the Food and Drug Administration in 1997. And it's an amazing drug that required a lot of research for development. And at the time that it was released, the manufacturer said it has very, very narrow indications. It was only indicated for 4 and a maximum of 8 doses. That's a total of 8 doses in a person's entire life. And the manufacturer said they had to charge $2,500 a month for the treatment for the 4 months in order to recoup their cost. And at the time, it seemed that that made sense. In 1998, the total sales of Rituxan globally was $150 million. Probably cost them a lot more than that to develop the drug.
Right.
In 2016, the sale of Rituxan was $7 billion. It's used for life for some diseases. It's life-saving. If you need it and you don't take it, you might die or probably will die. So it's an essential drug. It functions as a monopoly, and it's now the number 1 selling anti-cancer drug in the world. So has the price gone down because now the manufacturer sells 50 times as much as they did initially? Regrettably, the answer is no. The price has almost tripled. So I think that there's a lot of evidence, and this is just one, but there's a lot of evidence that at release it's conceivable that a company might say we need a high price because we don't know how much we're going to sell of this drug. We've only studied it in 1 disease. But when they've studied it in 10 and 20 diseases and it works in all of them and they sell it for all of them, someone should be able to go back and say, we allowed you to charge a lot of money to begin with,
right?
But now that you're selling so much, maybe you could afford to reduce it. But that doesn't happen.
So let me ask you a question. Like in this particular case, do they have a patent or a copyright that just has a certain amount of time on it?
They have a patent, but it's a patent for a biologic. And so get into details, and that would be for another discussion.
Sure.
But you can't copy a biologic. We are just now getting into the era of biosimilars, and there's a couple of biosimilars on the market, which is essentially a biologic with a new biologic that's similar to it, but not identical. It's not like taking a salt molecule and copying it, and you have another salt molecule. These are made by biologic mechanisms, and none of them are identical.
So
Rituxan has never had a competitor.
To put it in layman's terms and keep it really dumbed down for me, you have Tylenol, then you have the knockoff of Tylenol. So is it really the same, or is it just a close to it? Or you have all these different, Benicar, for instance. You got the Benicar for high blood pressure, and then there's another medicine they say it's the replacement for it, and it costs about $2, where the Benicar is $500 for a prescription.
So the drugs you're talking about, the generics are absolutely identical. For the biologics, and we have a lot of biologics in oncology, for the biologics, it's not possible to make them identical. They can only be similar. And about 1.5 years ago was the first time ever that the first biosimilar was approved in the United States. We may have 1 or 2 more coming forward, but much, much more complicated to develop biosimilars than to copy a molecule like Tylenol.
So what's the future for you and at Oncology Analytics? You guys you've made huge strides over the years. What's next for you?
Well, the goal,
the big hurdle
earlier for Oncology Analytics, is to have an impact on the patients whose care we oversee for health plans. Mm-hmm. That's our core business model. But we have a broader mission. And the mission, because of things that we recognize, the mission is to improve cancer care in the United States by having an impact on policy. And one of the problems, and I think it's being better recognized now, is the FDA approval process and the mandate for Medicare to pay for an approved drug. So we all want better drugs. There's no doubt about that. But and then we see in the news that the FDA approval process is sluggish, and it should move forward more quickly, so people have an opportunity to use new drugs. But if you don't do it right, you end up with unanticipated adverse effects, that adversely impact quality and cost.
So, Dr. Marc Fishman, we have to wrap this up, and I want everyone to know where to find you so they can get more information. Obviously, you're doing some terrific things at really trying to figure out how to regulate pricing in this area, and hopefully there'll be some legislation that's going to help us down the road. And when a drug they made enough money, now let's make it where it's affordable for everyone to get the care they need. So, Dr. Marc Fishman, CEO of Oncology Analytics, that's oncologyanalytics.com. We sure appreciate you being on the show, and hopefully we'll have you back on and hear the latest updates.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.